上一集跟大家分享了 STAR 原则跟一些实际的片语，那今天就让我们来听听几个热门的面试问题跟回答的方式。Hello， 欢迎来到 Executive Plus 主管双语沟通力的 podcast。我们希望带给大家最实用的沟通工具，包括了成功人士对全球市场的分享、职场英语的技能、跨文化沟通技巧与其他能帮助您成为出色领导者的工具。Hi, I'm Sherry, founder of Executive Plus. As a language trainer and certified coach, I've trained hundreds of managers from Fortune 500 companies such as Dior, Google, Deloitte, and Yahoo.
And I'm Nick, Director of Communication Strategy at Presentality. I've helped startups raise millions of US dollars in funding and train the executives of publicly listed companies to present on the global stage.
Welcome to the Executive Plus podcast,
where you can take your communication and language skills from good to great. Hey everybody, welcome back to an Executive Plus podcast. In our last episode, we covered the basic formula of STAR, there to help you answer key behavioral questions in a clear and concise manner. Today, we want to go through examples of how you can put STAR to work, but before we do that, we want to begin with the mindset that you should use to approach answering these management-level questions.
在我们继续给大家多一点例子之前，其实我们要先了解一下一个非常重要的一个心态，也就是我们要知道该怎么样回答问题中的问题。So actually answering the problem and not answering the question.
We've often talked about the question behind the question, or the problem behind the question, whether it's in an email or whether it's an interview or just a presentation, is are you answering questions people are asking you, or are you solving the problem that they are trying to solve by asking the question? So when going into these interview situations, you're going to get asked a lot of questions that you could answer in a very straightforward manner, but it won't actually solve the problem that they're trying to understand. And so the mentality is always, do you understand what they're really trying to ask you? An example of how this might work is let's look at the answer to our example question from our previous episode. The question was, can you describe a time where you had to learn quickly? What would be the purpose behind someone asking that question? Explain a time that you have learned quickly. Now, the most straightforward answer that you can give is just a story of a time that you learned something very, very quickly. And that would answer that question, but there's another layer behind it, which is they're looking for your strategy or your thought process behind having to speed up your work.
So the interviewer is really trying to understand, not just because how you can learn something very quickly. You could tell them that, oh, I learned tap dance really quickly, but that's not going to help them at all. But what they wanted to know is how you're going to come about in that decision, and also what is your mentality behind that, and how long it took. So I think it's all of these different details they wanted to find out from your answers.
It's almost that idea that when we were young and we were taught math, maybe someone could give you a math question and you could just immediately fire back the correct answer. But then as you get to, say, a college level math, they'll go, how did you get that answer? What was the formula you used? What was your strategy to getting the correct answer? And a lot of times this is the same mentality. I'm glad that you learned a way to quickly, but what was your process? What was your strategy? How did you approach this? And what's the long-term benefit of learning how to do this?
Exactly.
When we get back into the example of that in full, it may sound like this. Here's a quick overview of the situation. At my last position as a consultant, my clients came from a wide range of medtech backgrounds. For each client, I was assigned to create an industry research report. Since we would send a detailed proposal within a week of the initial meeting, it meant we needed to move very fast and have a strong grasp of the industry quickly. Initially, this work took dozens of hours of overtime. However, I decided that it was important to create a template and a specific methodology for researching. Over a weekend, I developed a detailed process to optimize research and formulate a report. I successfully refined that process over months, and now industry reports take no more than an afternoon to produce. We always have the key information needed to speak on a professional level with the clients and secure a contract.
So let's say we're just answering this question straightforward without even thinking about what's the problem behind the question. How would you answer this question?
If I just wanted to jump straight into an answer that fits the question, I could have simply said, in my last job, we had to understand a lot of different med tech industries quickly, and I would have to write a research report within about a week. So I really had to quickly understand an industry and write a report.
所以两种真的是非常大的不同，因为第一者你讲到了你在这个之中你学到了什么，而且是你能够因为这个情况你去做了something that you went the extra mile in creating the methodology, and then it makes the process so much easier going forward, right? So 如果很 straightforward 你只是讲说 OK 我好像做什么样子的事情非常的快速我就可能可以学到了，它其实可能能够让对方感受到你很聪明 you're intelligent， 但是其他的就没有办法感受到。
And there's also a different quality that I'm displaying. So if I just wanted to display, I work hard until the project is done, I could have stayed at it cost me dozens of hours of overtime in order to finish the report. But, I worked late at night to finish the report. That can be a way I portray myself. But through my answer, what I'm trying to frame out is that I'm someone who is more strategic in how I do things. I'm looking for efficiency and quality. So I had to create a template. I created a process. And this is the feeling that I'm giving them.
All right, so let's jump into other popular behavioral questions. And let's start with this one question that we always get about overcoming challenges.
Another basic management question that you'll often hear is, tell me about a time that you handled a challenging situation. To go back to my STAR formula, I will start out with a situation, and you'll hear me use the phrase, for one particular project. Task. In this situation, my responsibility was to. Action. I made a decision that. And result. Against all odds, I was able to. So listen for these key phrases because that's going to indicate the point where I'm hitting my STAR. I'm also trying to frame the way that I do something in order to answer their overall problem. See if you can spot that.
Most often my job was to assist my boss in overseeing PR launch events. However, for one particular project, it was not the case. My boss had to take a few days off to handle an emergency family matter just one day before the launch. In this situation, my responsibility was to follow the tasks she set out for me and complete them. To everyone's surprise, one major thing went wrong. The special guest that was the center of the event had a last-minute flight cancellation. Therefore, I made a decision to reprioritize my tasks and tackle the urgent matters first. I called several airlines and rearranged the pickup service to ensure the guests arrived on time. Other key tasks were delegated to other coworkers. Against all odds, I was able to pull the event together and had a successful turnout. The biggest takeaway from this experience was to always be flexible, be persistent, and learn to trust your coworkers.
In this example, I hope you were able to pick out those key phrases, the STAR, the situation, that her job is usually to oversee PR launch events, but then her boss was not there. Her task was to follow the basic guidelines set across by her boss, but a challenge arose, the guest speaker couldn't make it. Actions that she took, talk to the airlines, delegate tasks, and the result, a successful event. But also, the way that she framed it out again. If, Sherry, you were just to simply give a basic answer to this question, what would you have said instead?
I would probably just say, well, as an assistant to my manager, I completed the task, but in this situation, I had to go the extra mile to rearrange the airlines and did all the other tasks at a later date, and I was able to just kind of pull everything together. So I would just go for a more straightforward route, describe what had happened, and that was it.
With the goal of, again, answering the problem behind the question or the question behind the question about what is your mentality in this approach, there's one line you added to the end that matters a lot. The biggest takeaway from this experience was to. And the idea, again, is it's not about giving you a story of a time that I triumphed. It's what did I learn from this situation? How is my experience and knowledge growing through this experience? And by adding that in, people can start to give a sense of how you look at things.
Right.
Do you just see a challenge and overcome the challenge? Or is it, do you see a challenge and learn something from it, whether you succeed or not?
我觉得尤其是在回答类似像这样子 overcoming challenge 这样子的问题的时候，通常你的 challenge 一定是 unexpected, right? It's not something that you would expect. It's not something that you know that's going to happen. 一定是一种突发的状况。所以这种突发的状况的话，其实你有很多的空间，你是可以去计划、去策划你该怎么样回答这个问题。It's actually kind of interesting. 当然，最后的 the biggest takeaway 一定是你等于说你去总结了你的经验是什么，这个顺便也能够让对方感受到你是怎么样子的学习，你是积极的人吗？ Are you positive? Are you persistent? 你能够让人家知道你的 personality, 你的个性到底是怎么样。
Let's jump into our last example. And our last example would answer the question, describe how you manage stress at work.
Again, 这个就是我们如何去管理你的压力。So, 如果我们用 STAR, 我们之前所提供这些片语 So, we're going to use some particular phrases this time. So STAR, S, we're going to use a few years ago. T, in this situation, I discovered that. A, I made a decision to. And R, it turns out. 所以等一下大家注意听这些 key phrases, 你就会知道我们现在进行到哪一个步骤。
Stress in the workplace is inevitable, no matter the job or company. A few years ago, I was suffering from major burnout. I was finishing all my work, but not to the standard I set for myself. I had read every book or blog on the topic of burnout looking for a quick fix. In this situation, I had to step back and take a look at what was really causing the stress. I discovered that I still enjoyed my work, but I didn't have the energy to push through the day, and it was causing me anxiety when I could not finish work. When I slogged through the work over long hours just to complete it, I began to resent it. I also discovered that the amount of quality sleep I got and when I ate my meals drastically affected my outlook on the day. If I slept and ate well, I didn't have burnout the next day and I would be at 100% productivity. So I made a decision to set good habits at home, especially my night routine. After certain hours, I put down all electronics and just read or listened to podcasts to help my mind calm down and sleep earlier. It turns out my solution for burnout was not at the office, but by fixing my habits outside of the office. I learned that with better lifestyle, work stress did not take a heavy toll, and I was able to face any challenge.
So, Nick, if you were to just answer this question very direct and straightforward, what would you answer?
A lot of answers that you will hear related to this would be like, oh, I go get a spa day, or I take a relaxing weekend, or, oh, I never get stressed at work because I love my job.
Right, yeah.
And these answers are not wrong, but they're not telling your interviewer anything about yourself.
Yeah.
Again, there's no process that shows that you learned something. There's no process that shows you had a strategy to fixing it. It's just, oh yeah, when I'm really stressed, I like to play video games, or I like to go to a spa for a deep tissue massage, and then I get energy.
Yeah, but the thing is, you don't get to go to spa in the middle of the work or play video games, right?
Right. Like, they may not see it as a positive. You're like, I have to leave today and go get a massage, but tomorrow I'll be at full productivity. It may answer the question, and again, it's not a wrong answer, but it doesn't tell them anything about you. And so anytime you answer this question, you want to frame out something that they can learn, that you have a thought process. You can show your work about how you handle these kind of problems.
And I actually learned a lot about Nick from this answer is that this person definitely has a high level of self-awareness. 他自我察觉能力非常的高，他知道什么时候为什么他会有这些 stress。 那如果他改变了他生活的习惯，他可以他的感受是不同，什么样子不同。 So like you will really understand this person has a really high level of self-awareness and this person is willing to make that change. 所以从这个的答案你可以得到的是更多的。
There's also something that I've kind of snuck in there, whereas my answer is a little bit counterintuitive, which most of the time when people think of work stress or they think of burnout, they associate it with not liking what you do or not enjoying the work, and this is why you have high anxiety. But there's a lot of times you can reframe it and go, actually, I love what I do, but there are certain factors that stop me from loving it, and that's what I'm overcoming.
那我觉得其实大部分的人在工作，你超过5年以上，你都会知道 burnout 是一定会发生的。It doesn't matter how much you love the job, you will feel burnout, you will feel like you need a little break, or you need to change yourself. So that is a more realistic answer. You can't just tell them that, oh, I love this job, so I feel great every day. That's not true.
There's an adage that it's like, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. But it doesn't always occur that way.
Yeah.
And so showing that you have ways of kind of rekindling that love or allowing you to focus makes a big difference. We hope that you enjoyed going through the STAR situation and seeing our examples, but also think more about what's the question behind the question? What's the problem behind the question? So when you follow STAR, you're not just giving a basic answer, but you're actually framing out what is it you want to show them about yourself. We'll talk to you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.
如果你喜欢我们的 podcast， 欢迎来追踪我们的主管英文 Executive Plus 的 Facebook。那也可以写信到我们的信箱 yourcareerplus@gmail.com。